Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me on Sunday morning for my tea. Thanks for joining me. I love lingering over my tea on Sunday mornings, and so this is so much fun spending it with all of you. And what really blows my mind or amazes me is the fact that you all come from all different parts of the world, and in this moment we can share this moment together. And that's what I love the most, because as I went through the comments from last week's video, I noticed that people were tuning in from Japan, from Hong Kong, from India, from Australia, from different parts of Europe, and of course US and Canada. So it was quite mind-blowing for me, and I really love that. And as you know, last week we talked about cups, and we talked about the different teacups I use. So today I've got a teacup that somebody gave me at an event, and it says Undercover Unicorn on it. I'm just checking. Yep, it says that on both sides. It says Undercover Unicorn, and inside there's a unicorn, but I can't show that to you because my cup is full of tea. But what I wanted to do is real quickly, I wanted to share with you just some of the highlights of some of the best teacups pictures that you guys sent me. So I'd asked you to send me pictures of teacups, of your favorite teacup, and we gave you an email address, and the pictures flooded in. Oh my God, there were like so many to go through. But Danny and I went through them, and we picked some of the most fun ones, and I just want to share those with you. So I'm going to look at Danny to see, is he ready to pull some up?
As you can see on the preview screen, we have got one now from Anna.
Oh, Anna. This was a really sweet one. And I am trying to read what it says, but can you read what it says? Because the screen's too far away for me to read it, but I remember it said something really fun and cute.
There you go. I've zoomed in for you.
Okay, I still have to wear my glasses. No, there's reflection on the
Oh
screen.
me, oh my.
Okay.
Getting up in the morning is the most challenging thing of the day.
That's actually true. That's actually true for a lot of the days for me. Actually, no, it isn't, and it is. I'm not someone who loves to get up really super early in the morning, but yet I look forward to every day because I love what I do. So I thought that was really cute. The next one that we have coming up, the next cup, which I thought was also really cute because it has...
This one's from Dale. It says, I will never let you go.
I thought that was really sweet, and it looks like a sloth on the cup, but it is just so cute. Or it could be a raccoon because he's got that, like the Zorro mask around his eyes. But it's a really sweet cup. Okay, now the next one reminds me of the cup that I've got right now that I'm holding in my hand now. It reminds me of that because, and who is this one from?
This one is from Jenny.
Jenny. Okay, so Jenny sent this picture, and her cup has a rabbit inside. Now, my cup, which I am holding in my hand right now, has got a unicorn inside, a three-dimensional unicorn, the same way that this cup has a rabbit, and I thought that was a really sweet cup. So the next one, of course, is one of my favorites. And who's this one from?
This one's from Lisa.
Lisa sent this picture, and it says, forget love, rather fall chocolate. So fall in chocolate. So it's not about falling in love, it's falling in chocolate. Oh my God, that would be so much fun to fall into chocolate. Wow, I'm thinking about it and I'm going giddy. Now the next one I thought was really cute, which is...
This one's from Maria.
Maria sent this one, which is... I loved the shape. It's like it's musical notes, but it's kind of, flowy like a musical note. Loved it. And the next one, which is from...
This one's from Rajinder.
From Rajinder. And I don't think the cup exists, but he created it online. He created the picture, which I thought was kind of fun and kind of sweet. It says, keep calm and listen to Anita. Now, I'm not so sure about that for myself, but yet I thought that was a very sweet gesture. So thank you, Rajinder. And then the next one, which is that the last one?
That's the last one. This one's from Sarah.
Sarah sent in this cup, which I absolutely love as well. I flew here on my unicorn. See, that's the kind of cup I would have. But actually, all the ones I showed you are the kinds of cups I would have. But there were so many really, really fun mugs and cups out there, and I just loved seeing them. Because when you do that, when you send me stuff like that, it gives me a little bit of a taste of you and a part of you and who you are, which is so much fun because I always feel people know me and they know who I am. So a lot of people, I mean, um, because of my story and because I've shared so much of myself, it's always fun to get to know you. And it's really fun meeting a lot of you. And it's so much fun how I find it so hilarious how people feel they know me and don't always realize I don't know them. And I remember one time I was in a city and I actually went into the washroom in a shopping mall. And so there I was in the ladies' room at the sink, washing my hands. And then a lady at the sink next to me, she turns and she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, you're here. You're in town. Hi." And the way she spoke to me was as if she was somebody I knew. So she said something more like, "Oh, you're in town. When did you get in?" So I looked at her and I said, "Oh, I got in yesterday." And I was trying to rack my brains to think, where do I know her? Why is her name not coming to me? Because she said, "Hi, Anita, you're in town." So I was like, oh. And then I said, "I'm so sorry. I meet so many people. Could you remind me your name?" And she said to me, "Oh, I'm sorry. You don't know me, but I know you." And it was just so hilarious that moment. And I started laughing because the way she talked to me was as if we were intimate friends. And I actually loved that. Whereas I had never met her before in my life, but then, I must have met her in the ethers. But she had read my book, she'd followed my videos, and she said, "I follow you on Facebook, and I didn't realize you were here." So it was a funny moment, but it's always fun when people know me and I suddenly realize, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about them. That's why I love connecting with all of you and hearing about yourselves and about what mug you drink out of in the morning and where do you live and what country are you from and things like that. So, last week I spoke about a question that I get asked most often. And if you haven't seen that video, I'd love for you to go back and watch it after this one. And it was about, how do you love yourself? Today I'm going to speak about another really frequently asked question, which is that is self-love selfish, or is too much self-love selfish, or when is self-love selfish? Worded in so many ways, but basically a lot of people equate self-love to being selfish. And this is the problem, because believing it's selfish is what prevents you from feeling self-love. And the fact that you are asking that question means that you have a hard time loving yourself. So a lot of the issues in our world, so first of all, I want to assure you that many of the issues in our world are not caused by too much self-love. They're caused by a lack of self-love. So at the moment, what we're dealing with within each of us and within the world, within many of us, not everybody, but many of us, and also in the world in general, what we're dealing with is a lack of self-love. We're not dealing with too much self-love. A lot of people mistake an over identification with the ego as too much self-love. That's actually not the case. A lot of people mistake selfishness with too much self-love. That's also not the case. What happens is, when we don't love ourselves enough, we actually compensate and we do things that we believe will fill this void. So if you think of yourself as a container, and this container needs to be filled with something. If you don't fill it with anything, the container is empty. It's a void. When it's a void, this lack of self-love, it needs to be filled with something. And so what we do is we fill it with things like, we compensate, we fill it with things like material possessions, clothes, trying to inflate ourselves to make us look like we have more than we do. We don't like to show that we have this void, so we kind of fill it with things that don't mean anything. But when you fill that void with self-love, what happens is that that self-love makes you more discerning as to what you bring into your life and what you don't. And I'm going to give you an easier way of looking at this. I'm going to articulate it a little bit better. So give me a moment to form this in my own mind as I articulate this. So basically, one of the things that I really realized when I was on the other side is I realized the importance of self-love, but I realized that when we don't love ourselves, it doesn't make you selfless. When we don't love ourselves, what it is that we've left this void. We've left it empty because we haven't filled it with self-love, or we haven't filled it with love. So loving yourself means filling yourself up with love. When you don't fill yourself, so if you think of yourself as a container, and when you don't fill that container with love, that container remains open to be filled with all kinds of other things. So when you think of yourself as a container and you think that I want to consciously fill my container with love, and it's even an act of self-love to consciously fill your container with love. And the more you fill your container with love, the more love you have to share with other people. And it totally makes sense, because really all you're doing when you love yourself is you are filling this container that is yours with love. You're bringing love into your container so that you can be a beacon of love for everyone else. It's kind of, and love is kind of like light. It's kind of like a candle. The more you share, it doesn't make yours go dimmer. And that's the thing. So sharing love is very, it's very energizing for the people around you, and it doesn't diminish you at all as well. So in order to know that you're getting it right, in order to know that you are able to fill yourself with love, I've made it very simple by creating this one sentence that you just need to ask yourself in everything you do. And that sentence is this recharging me or depleting me? So it's to do with any activities you do, if you are with people, if you are taking on a job, if you are eating at a restaurant, if you are hanging with people. The only question you need to ask yourself is this recharging me or is this depleting me? In other words, am I feeling drained by doing this, or am I feeling charged and energized by doing this? And if you're feeling drained, it's not about judging the people and saying, oh, they're toxic people. You don't have to go down that road at all. It just means that maybe the activities they're partaking in right now are not of interest to you, and you're feeling drained. And so no judgment, just acknowledge this is not charging me. And so you can actually make a reason to leave or to do something else or to change up the activity with those same people. So it's really as simple as that. Thinking in terms of, is this recharging me or depleting me? Is really an act of self-love, and it is not selfish, and it is absolutely not selfish to fill yourself up with love. I have more to say on this topic, but what I want to say now is that I would love for you to submit your questions, particularly questions around this topic, on anything that you and anything you would like to share. Danny's going to go through them. We are broadcasting live on both Facebook and on YouTube. So Danny, I'm going to look at him and say, are you able to look at comments on both, or do you want people to email in? Whatever's easier, whatever works for you.
As somebody commented recently, Danny's an expert at juggling stuff. So I am now reading the comments on YouTube and on Facebook simultaneously.
Oh, wow, wow.
Well,
you're a man of many skills.
Well, not simultaneously, but, I'm flicking back and forth,
And is there anything you wanted to share before I dive in even further?
Lots of people are saying, hello, Danny.
Oh, nice. I like that. Pretty soon you'll have to have your own show.
Somebody even called me Boo.
There you go.
Well, that's in preparation for Halloween, of course.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
And for those of you who want to know how I actually call him when I call him, I don't go boo, I go boo. Sounds a bit like a video game. So yeah, that's how I actually Call him. And so any comments you want to share, or I will dive in a little bit more.
Let's ask people to actually submit questions starting 3, 2, 1.
Go!
Submit your questions now.
Yes. Yeah, so go ahead and submit your questions. And of course, what we love is questions that are, I guess, short, and so that Danny can catch them to the point, and preferably related to this topic as well. So, so the thing is, let's look at what lack of self-love, what it does, and what it does to you. So lack of self-love, because we are a container. Lack of self-love means you haven't filled the container with any love. What it does is that it makes you needy. It makes you extremely needy. And when you are needy, you look to other people for approval because you don't know how to fill your own container, or because you have been conditioned to believe that filling my own container with love, which means loving myself, filling my own container with love myself is selfish. So I better not do it. I better wait for other people to fill it, or other people to give me acknowledgement, or other people to tell me I'm lovable. So by waiting for other people to do that, you become needy. And what that does is that it causes you to do things that to seek approval. You stop becoming your own person. You actually start to do things purely for approval because you want them to fill your container with love, which you believe you cannot fill because it makes you selfish if you start filling it for yourself. So that belief that loving yourself is selfish prevents you from filling the container yourself. So when you are needy, you end up walking around the world as somebody with a big hole or with a big void that needs to be filled by other people. When you are aware that it's okay to fill your container yourself, in fact, not only okay, but it's actually a positive thing to fill your container, you end up filling it with love. And when it's okay to fill it with love, you walk around with this love, and you walk around as this beacon of love for everyone else. And when you think about it, who would you rather be sitting next to? Who would you rather share a room with? You'd rather the person with the full container of love. When you look at it that way, who's more selfish? The one with the void who wants you to fill it up for them, or the one with the full container who's got so much to share with you? So this is why self-love is not selfish. Thinking in terms of loving yourself as selfish is very last century. It's very outdated. The way to think now is this recharging me or depleting me? That's a much better way to think of it. And know that when you are recharged, where does that energy go? It goes towards sharing with other people. One of the reasons why we tend to believe that loving ourselves is selfish or filling ourselves is selfish is because we tend to also believe that we are fundamentally flawed or fundamentally not good people. And if we love ourselves too much, we will be releasing this evil person. In actuality, fundamentally, you are good. We are all, our essence, our pure self is actually pure love. It's pure light. And so when you fill yourself with, when you fill your container with love, in a sense, you're matching what you are on the inside. When you have filled yourself with love, you are actually more able to be who you are. You don't need other people's approval. And when you allow yourself to be who you are, then you allow your true spirit to shine through you. So I hope that kind of makes it clear. So the people who you see out there who you believe are selfish, they're actually acting from a place of lack, so in other words, a place of scarcity, not from a place of abundance. So one of the reasons I'm sharing what I'm sharing is because when I was sick, when I had cancer, even before I had cancer, I truly believed that it was selfish to love myself. I didn't see it this way. I believed that it comes from a scarcity mentality, as if there is a finite amount of love to go around. And if I love myself, it's as if I'm depriving other people. And so I'm being selfish because I am putting myself first, and there is a finite amount of love to go around. And that is so not true and such an archaic way of thinking. And because I believed it was selfish to love myself, I never did anything for myself. I always put other people first, to the point where even when I had problems, even when I had issues, I didn't take care of them because I would feel guilty, because I would always feel there were people with problems that were worse than mine. I always put other people first. Everybody else's problems seemed worse than mine. It literally took death for me to realize that if I am going to deplete myself, so basically you saw where that thinking that way got me. I mean, it got me to draining myself to the point of dying. And basically it was at that point that I realized that if I'm going to deplete myself, I'm not any good for anyone. So the more I fill my container with love, the more I have to give. Okay, so what does it mean to fill my container with love? It isn't just about just loving yourself all the time, but it is about doing things that take care and nourish yourself and nourish your soul. So let me share some of the things that I do. It can be anything like getting sleep. Yesterday, I literally had a lie-in. I slept. I wanted to stay in bed until almost 10 a.m. and I did. And it's so rare I do that, but for me, that was an act of self-love. I had tons of things to do, but I thought, nope, today I'm not going to get out of bed until 10. And I just lazed and dreamed and snoozed. And so for me, that's an act of self-love. It can be anything like just getting extra rest. It can be, for you, it could be meditating is an act of self-love. Now, remember last week I shared a video which really directly showed you what it means to love yourself. But it's, and if you can do that regularly, that's really great. But in your day-to-day life, the things that are loving are things like allowing yourself the time to just rest, to recuperate, to eat foods that make you feel good, to binge watch your favorite show. That's what I do sometimes. I just turn off the computer, turn off the world, and I binge watch some of my favorite TV shows. And I remember at an event I did recently, somebody came up to me and she said, and she actually said this to me. She said that she had asked me a question a couple of years back at another event of what for me was an act of self-love. Or maybe she hadn't even asked me a question, and I had just said that, oh my God, I had the best time last night. I stayed up and binge watched The Good Wife. And for her, and this is what she said for her, this was one of the most profound things I said, because she literally thought that I spent my life just doing things like meditating and going and doing like all what are called spiritual things, like weighing my food, watching what I eat, watching my thoughts. She thought I spent my life doing that. So here's the thing I want to share with you. Up until I had cancer, up until I was sick, I was somebody who thought I was really, really spiritual. And I used to do those things then. It was actually what happened is death set me free. And the reason I share with you what I share with you is because my hope is to set you free. It's really to set you free from constantly worrying, am I getting this right? Am I doing this right? What do I need to do to be more spiritual? What do I need to do to be more well? Am I being selfish? Should I be doing that? Set yourself free from that voice, from those thoughts, and know that deep down you are fundamentally good. You are not flawed. You are not evil. You are fundamentally good. And set yourself free. Completely set yourself free. Who would you be if you allowed yourself to be completely free? And the thing is that in the past, I would have judged myself for things like I actually love purses. I love scarves. I love things like that. I love chocolate. I love binge watching TV shows. There's so many things that I love to do. And I just allow them all, because when we allow who we are, we allow ourselves, we allow the love to flow as well. So it is really about setting yourself free from that judgmental voice. And here are some of the other things that you can do that really sets yourself free. I feel good when I'm out with friends and having a good time. I really do. I feel good when I am trying on clothes that make me feel good about myself. You know, I really like clothes that have nice, beautiful colors. That makes me feel good. All of these things energize me. The other thing that I feel energizes me are crystals. I actually love crystals. I wear crystal jewelry, and research has actually shown that crystals energize you just by their very presence. They just emit this energy that energize you just by their presence. So I love myself enough to allow myself to get crystals and surround myself with them, because that makes it easier for me to keep my energy up. Music keeps my energy up, and that is an act of self-love. So if you have pets, your pets energize yourself. So one of the dangers of constantly worrying about whether you're being selfish is that you will constantly be putting yourself into situations where your energy is being depleted, where you keep saying that, oh, it would be selfish if I don't do this, so I need to do this. I understand that there are things that you do where you have a responsibility that may be depleting your energy. But when you are aware of it, you can do other things to charge your batteries, to charge your energy, to recharge yourself, to compensate. And when you compensate, those things actually feel a lot easier, and they come to you a lot easier. You may have to care for aging parents. You may have special needs children or small children that need care constantly. In fact, when you are more energized, you're able to uplift their energy, including aging parents, just by your very presence. And your work is actually made much lighter when your own energy is lighter. I'm going to turn to Danny now and ask him, have we got any questions that I can tend to?
Yes, there were some great questions which I had queued up over here, but now they've scrolled off the screen.
Oh no.
But I do remember one of them.
Yes.
And it's a very interesting question. I do apologize, I don't remember who wrote it. I'll go back and check that. But the question is, well, actually, there's one trick question for you first. Lots of people have said to you, like, hey, Anita, what's your favorite TV show? So I'm going to put you on the spot over there.
Oh, there are so many. I binge watch. So I'm someone that can't wait a week and watch something once a week. So I do binge watch. And so I'm going to tell you some of the recent ones I've been binge watching. One that I loved that I binge watched a few months ago was called Manifest. It was really a great show, and I was hooked onto that, and I'm waiting for season 2 to come out. And I'm going to let you check what it's about. But basically, it's about a time warp, but I'm going to let you check because it's quite complex, and I loved that show. Another one that I binge watch is The Good Place. That's a fun one, and it's with I think it's with Ted Danson, right? And Jamila, I think that's her name. I love her. She's really great in it. So that's a really fun show. The Good Place in this show refers to heaven, and so they call it The Good Place and The Bad Place. And so it's a comedy, it's an absolute comedy, which is about being in heaven, but there's a couple of people there who are there by mistake, so it's hilarious. So I binge watched that one. There's another show that I watch, which is a British show, or actually perhaps it's a Scottish show, called The Indian Doctor, which I also really enjoy, with Sanjeev Bhaskar, I think that's his name. So it's a great show, and Aisha Dharkar, and I'm fans of both of them. So it's a British show, but it's about an Indian doctor who goes and works in Wales. So those are some of the shows I watch. I binge watched The Good Wife when it was on. I was really sad when it was over. So yeah, so there you go. Those are some of the TV shows. I'm sure there's few more, but yeah, those are some of them.
All right, now this is a question that came in from Facebook, and Facebook doesn't like me, so the questions have scrolled away. But the question was, does this lack of self-love affect women more than it affects men?
It seems to. Now, it's a generalization, but at the same time, I think it's the way that we have been culturally conditioned. The lack of self-love does affect women more than it affects men. Although I do know of men that lack self-love, and I think that when men lack self-love, they tend to become more, I say, egotistical. So the interesting thing is, when I actually believe in embracing the ego. I don't see the ego as a negative thing. But when it does appear to be a negative thing is when there is too much ego and too little conscious awareness. So what is ego? Ego is actually a self-awareness, like to be overly aware of self. But when we are overly aware of self with a lack of other awareness, then it makes us egotistical. When we are overly aware of other with a lack of self-awareness, that's what depletes you. So if you have a lack of ego, but you're constantly aware of other people's needs, that is what depletes you. And this is why I often say we need to embrace the ego and we need to bring both into balance. We need to be self-aware and other-aware, both at the same time. So it needs to be a full awareness. So going back to the actual question of men and women, there was research done, and I don't remember like who or what or where, but I have read this, and I have read it in a couple of places, that, for example, when a man submits his CV, his resume for a job, a man is 80% more likely to exaggerate his qualifications. A man is 80% more likely to exaggerate his qualifications than a woman. So in other words, 80% of men are more likely to exaggerate their qualifications, whereas 80% of women underplay their qualifications. So that's one survey. So women underplay it and men exaggerate. So men have more self-esteem, self-worth. Their self-worth is more inflated than women's, and women's, in fact, are deflated. So the other thing that I had also read somewhere, which was really interesting, is that there was and this goes to cultural conditioning. There was once an experiment that was done where they created a resume, a CV, and with all these qualifications, and they sent it round to a corporation for people to read, or send it around to different corporations for people to read, and they had that CV written up as with the name on it as a man's name, and people were thinking, oh my God, this guy sounds brilliant, he sounds so qualified, we've got to interview him, we've got to hire him. They sent around the same CV with a woman's name, and what came back was, oh, man, she sounds really aggressive. Oh, no, I don't think we want someone like her in the company. She's too ballsy. She's way too headstrong. So different response with a man's name and a woman's name. And I think because of this cultural conditioning, and I'm not going to blame the men on this, because women do this as well. And this is my point. And I often don't like to generalize, because it's not the men's fault. In many cases, the women were also judging. The women were the ones in fact, both genders partook in this survey, and both genders felt that the man's resume was brilliant, while the women's one was over cocky or over aggressive. So we really have to start checking that in our culture. And the other thing that constantly happens is that when we use certain terms, like when we say, that my child wants to be an astronaut, or my child is a doctor, in our head, are you assuming that that person's child is a male? And those are the kinds of things we have to start to correct. And we do this, it's a gradual process, by actually referring to or making sure that in our visuals, we are actually bringing in the right visuals, that there is an equality actually appearing in our culture, in our paradigm. So it's a slow process, but I'm glad to say that it is happening. And yes, in your question, your observation is correct. It is a problem that is greater for women than men. And it's also because our culture seems to support it more and expect it more from men. But men have different stresses and pressures they have to deal with from women. So that was a great question. So thank you.
We have a question on YouTube from Ruben Castro, who
Hi,
says,
Ruben.
what do you tell people who are going through a difficult time in life?
So many things. I would say watch all my videos. If you were in front of me, I would ask you more questions as to what is causing that difficult time. But my sense is, unless you're going through grief, so grief is a different thing. Grief is you feel this pain and loneliness, or loss of somebody. So if it's grief, you need to heal the grief and give yourself all the time in the world to heal the grief. Don't judge yourself. There's no time limit on grief. And there's many people that can help you through grief. Find somebody to help you, but find someone who's supporting you and doesn't judge you if you need time to grief. But if it's something other than grief and you're going through a difficult time in life, I think that most difficult times, most situations in our lives that are difficult, are caused by us not being who we are. We fall into the trap of creating a life that is not our life. We often call depression, we often call spiritual crises, we label them as either depression or mental illness and all these things. But I believe all of these are spiritual crises. What is a spiritual crisis? A spiritual crisis is your soul, your spirit wants to express itself, but you haven't allowed it to express itself in the way it wants to. I feel that really healing yourself to the point where you can free your soul or spirit to express itself actually heals a lot of different ailments that our current culture suffers from, like mental illness, depression. All of these things are a form of a spiritual crisis. And the way that they occur is because we're conditioned to do things a certain way or be a certain way, or we believe we need to get approval, again, because we don't love ourselves enough, or we haven't filled our container with love. Self-love means filling your container with love. We haven't loved ourselves enough. And so we need to seek the approval of other people. As we seek the approval of other people, we get lost into what we think other people want us to be, and that's how we lose ourselves. And when you start becoming someone who is not you because you're trying to seek approval, you start living a life that is not your life. When you're living a life that is not your life and you face obstacles and challenges, they completely deplete you. They deplete you because you don't know how to solve them, because these are not your challenges. This is not your life. You're living a life you think everyone else wants you to live. Whereas when you love yourself and you're living a life that feels like this is your life, this is your path, this is your journey, this is your calling, and you do that just by being your authentic self and allowing your soul to express itself, it doesn't mean you don't get challenges. You do still face challenges in life, but every challenge makes you stronger and takes you even deeper and further along the journey to yourself. So when people feel completely depleted, when they hit depression, it's because they don't see a way out of their situation. And the reason they don't see a way out is because they're living a life that's not their life. So the question they have to ask is, who am I? Who would I be if I was completely free? Who did my soul come here to be? Who did I come here to? What did I come here to express? that's what I would suggest. Those are just a few of the suggestions. So thank you for that question. Do we have any more, or shall I go into some of the, like, I'd love to share some of the places where I'm going to be, where I'm looking forward to meeting so many of you.
It's interesting. People have been asking, where are you going to be? Somebody said, like, please come to Florida.
Oh, I wish I could come to Florida. I'd love to. I love the beach. I always love being by the beach. So the next place I'm going to be next week, in fact, sadly, I won't be doing a Facebook Live or a YouTube Live next Sunday. Next week, I am going to the Omega Center to do a 5-week retreat. I leave here on Sunday, a week from today, and it starts on Monday. It's a 5-day retreat. Did I say 5 week?
I think you said 5 weeks. Here, look.
That would be great.
Here, you can read the dates, right? It's 20 to 25th of October.
That's right. It's a 5-day retreat. Wouldn't it be fun if it was 5 weeks? I wish it was, actually, because what I'm going to be doing at this retreat...
If it was 5 weeks, how many pairs of shoes would you take?
I know, I would need a lot of luggage.
You'd need a lot of luggage. It's only 5 days.
It's my shawls and purses and
and shoes.
But the good news is I am a conscious shopper. I do like to shop where I know that the products, I don't like to shop from people who use sweatshops. So I want to assure you that I like to shop where I know people are getting paid a fair wage. But back to the 5-day retreat. It's going to be based on my ideas on the healing sanctuary. So it's going to be like sort of a prototype, but more like a practice run. I am, for the healing sanctuaries, I'm actually speaking to a couple of people, and hopefully we will have something off the ground sometime next year or late next year. But anyway, I'm going to use the 5 days at the Omega, so I really hope you'll join me. I'm going to use those 5 days to create this cocoon-like environment for us, where you are, if you are dealing with a health challenge or anything like that, we are going to use those 5 days to live like healthy people, like well people. We're going to train your cells to be well. We're going to train your brain to live like a well person. You are not going to be focusing on illnesses. You're going to be focusing on what it looks and feels like to be a vibrant, well, and healthy person. And that is what we're going to do over those 5 days. So I am really excited about that. Because one of the things I realized is that people who've been sick a long time, not just people who've been sick, our paradigm, when somebody is sick, our culture focuses on the illness. We focus on eradicating the illness and fighting the illness. The only way our culture knows how to deal with illness is to focus on the illness. But my belief is that we need to train ourselves to live like well people. Most people don't know what it looks like and feels like to be healthy, vibrant, and well. We need to focus on training ourselves and training our bodies to be healthy, vibrant, and well. So if you want to learn to do that, whether you are facing a health challenge or just want to be more well or have more vibrancy, or just learn what it means to be healthy, vibrant, and well. Maybe you are in the healthcare field. Maybe you're a healer, a teacher, or anybody like that. Then this retreat would be for you. The other place I'm going to be is Sedona, which I'm really excited about as well. This event is a multi-speaker event. The main event is already full, it's sold out, but I have a 1-day workshop on the Monday following the event, which there is still space at that workshop, and that is in Sedona. It's a full-day workshop, and so I'd love for you to join me. So there's still a few spots left, so please check out my website. No, I will put a link to that below this video. And then after that, still in November, I am going to be in New Mexico at the Conference for Scientists, Mystics, and Sages with some of my wonderful brothers in this industry, who are Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, wonderful, beautiful people like them. And so that's going to be a really fun event. That's going to be in New Mexico. So please join me there. Those are the events that I have left until the end of the year. There's a ton more events coming next year. one of which I'm really excited about, actually, which is not until May. And that is with my buddies Emmanuel Dagger and Sunny Dawn Johnston. It's going to be a 3-day event, and we have put it together, just 3 friends, just putting together a whole 3-day event about the afterlife, the process, the healing. So what is going to be really fun is that it's going to be uplifting, and we're going to cover the afterlife. We're going to cover the process, what happens in the process of life, and we're going to cover healing. And we're going to go deep into meditations. We're going to have music and fun and spend 3 full days together. That is not until May of next year. However, I believe there's an early bird discount right now for tickets for that, which lasts until the end of this month. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I just wanted you to say that if you got something out of this video, I would love for you to click subscribe or click like to my Facebook. I'd love for you to follow me, and I'd love for you to sign up for my newsletter. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing more of you next week and hearing from you. Keep the comments coming. I always take your ideas into consideration. I really do this so that people don't have to go through what I went through, because it's so easy. It's so simple. It's very easy to be happy. And that's all I want from you. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. And in the meantime, have a great week. Bye.